Did anybody analyze whether there was actually any harm at all to him in those circumstances?
So there was a crime. President's rights under 6103 of the IRS code was violated, and equally as important, 400,000 taxpayers had that right violated, including every employee of the Trump administration, the housekeepers at Doral, the greenskeepers, and the cashiers.
And you're welcome to pursue all of that, but it doesn't answer the question of whether the president actually suffered harm. And you're not answering that question either.
Every American who has ever gotten an audit letter from the IRS needs to hear this sentence. Right now in Washington, there is a family that cannot be audited. Not will not, cannot be audited. Not because of a law Congress passed, not because of anything that applies to you or me, because of a secret settlement. And the man in charge of explaining it to the American people, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, has a strategy. He just doesn't answer.
Have you identified any precedent in Treasury or IRS history for the agreement not to audit, investigate, or pursue any tax claims against the Trump family or businesses?
I can't identify any precedent where 400,000 tax returns, including the people you just mentioned and all of their employees, were leaked in a violation of one of the most sacred duties of the IRS.
So let me cut to that then. Senator. The leak was by a contractor. Can you tell me what contribution is being sought by Treasury or by the IRS for the harm done by the contractor? To a certain extent, your organization and the IRS are the victim of the contractor's malfeasance or negligence. What is being pursued by way of contribution by that contractor?
Well, the ranking member chastised me for cutting the contractor's contracts off, and we have removed their contracts, their ability to do business with Treasury and the IRS.
But there is no contribution into this particular case.
Again, Senator, you weren't here earlier, but I'm unable to discuss most of this because of ongoing litigation.
Yeah, I know everybody likes to say that, but the constitutional...
We like to follow the law, Senator.
And the law is that the Congress has constitutional oversight functions that do not disappear simply because there is litigation, however convenient it may be, by way of providing answers. So we have no precedent for it. No contribution is being sought from the contractor at fault. Was there any consideration to the government in return for the benefits of no audit, no investigation, no challenge or pursuit of refunds or other penalties?
Again, Senator, I'm unable to comment because of litigation. Treasury is represented by the Department of Justice in all matters. They act as our attorneys, so I would suggest that you direct your questions to Acting Attorney General Blanche.
Let's start with what actually happened, because Bessent doesn't want you to know the details. Is there any precedent anywhere in Treasury or IRS history for an agreement not to audit a sitting president's family? Bessent doesn't say yes, he doesn't say no. He pivots straight to the leak, as if the crime committed against the Trump family somehow cancels out the question of whether they get special legal treatment. It doesn't. Those are two separate issues, and Bessent knows it. He's just hoping you don't. Whitehouse pushes again. Was there any consideration, meaning anything given in exchange for this audit immunity? Ongoing litigation, Bessent says. Direct your questions to the Justice Department, but Bessent is not a bystander here. He runs the Treasury Department. The IRS answers to him, and Bessent told the committee that Treasury was simply following the direction of the Department of Justice, while acknowledging the matter was still subject to ongoing litigation, so he couldn't comment further.
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of times people who are before us invite me to ask my questions of somebody who's not before us, but you're the one who is before us, and I think you ought to know if there was any consideration offered or paid in return for that settlement. It's a very simple fact question. Was there or was there not consideration?
Again, there's ongoing litigation, and I suggest that you speak with the Treasury attorneys.
If this kind of behavior is okay with the chairman, I'll just pursue other questions. But, you know, what goes around comes around in terms of dodging questions.
I believe it's very clear that witnesses of any kind cannot discuss ongoing litigation.
They can certainly discuss a fact that they are aware of. The fact that there is some litigation out there doesn't mean that a witness can't say, yeah, there was no consideration, or yes, there was consideration. Was there a defense analysis memo? It's referenced in the judge's decision in Florida. Was there a defense analysis memo prepared by the IRS? And more specifically, did you see it?
Again, I'm not going to be able to comment on these matters.
Mr. Chairman, this just makes no sense at all. I've been a lawyer all my life. I have some idea of what is protected when you have a ongoing bit of litigation. Whether this individual has seen an official memo from within his own department is a very simple question to answer. And I think it's completely inappropriate to have this game of dodgem be pursued without any consequences. Well, last of all, here's another question. Was there any analysis of what harm befell President Trump from having his taxes released when every president since Nixon released their taxes and he had promised to? Did anybody analyze whether there was actually any harm at all to him in those circumstances?
So there was a crime. President's rights under 6103 of the IRS code was violated, and equally as important, 400,000 taxpayers had that right violated, including every employee of the Trump administration, the housekeepers at Doral, the greenskeepers, and the cashiers.
And you're welcome to pursue all of that, but it doesn't answer the question of whether the president actually suffered harm. And you're not answering that question either.
Senator Cortez Masto.
That's not an answer. That's a man hiding behind a door he helped build. And Whitehouse, a former U.S. attorney, was not having it. He said it plainly. Litigation privilege doesn't stop a witness from stating a fact. It doesn't stop him from saying, yes, there was consideration, or no, there wasn't. Bessent could answer. He is choosing not to. This isn't an isolated dodge either. One day after Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche indicated the IRS audit immunity portion of the deal would remain in effect, Bessent was back on the Hill and still refused to say whether Trump and his family remain exempt from audits. Senator Ron Wyden asked him directly, does the IRS audit immunity given to Trump, his family, and his businesses still stand? Bessent declined to answer, citing the unresolved legal dispute, 2 separate hearings, 2 separate committees, same non-answer, on repeat, and the money at stake is not small. A long-standing audit of a tax technique Trump reportedly used could have resulted in an estimated $100 million bill if the IRS had found wrongdoing. $100 million erased, not through a court ruling, through a settlement that his own Treasury Secretary won't explain. Wyden laid it out in blunt terms. He said Blanche let Trump off the hook for potentially $100 million in back taxes by canceling a long-running IRS dispute, then let the entire Trump family and the Trump organization off the hook for any tax crimes they may have committed in the past. As of right now, Wyden said, everybody in America is subject to audit except the Trump family. Sit with that. You can get audited. Your small business can get audited. Your elderly parents on a fixed income can get audited, but the sitting president and his adult sons cannot. It gets worse. One day after the settlement was announced, the Justice Department added an addendum that would purportedly prohibit the IRS from pursuing audits against Trump, his family, and their business associates for any previous tax offenses, and shield them from any other so-called lawfare or weaponization claims tied to a separate taxpayer-funded compensation fund. 35 former federal judges signed a filing describing the arrangement as corruption of the judicial process and called it an unprecedentedly fraudulent scheme. The federal judge overseeing the case called the allegations grievous and invited the Justice Department to respond. They didn't. 35 former federal judges, not activists, not pundits, judges, career jurists who spent their lives inside the system, looked at this deal and called it fraud on the court. And Bessent's answer, when asked about any of it, is still the same three words: ongoing litigation. When Democrats pushed harder in other hearings, Bessent stopped dodging and started attacking. Representative Linda Sanchez cited a 1962 Supreme Court ruling establishing that ongoing litigation does not prevent someone from testifying before Congress, then asked again why Trump and his family have complete immunity from being audited. Bessent told her, since she's a lawyer, she should understand that Treasury and the IRS are represented by the Justice Department. Another redirect, another refusal to just answer the question. And when Sanchez called his department out directly for running what she called the most corrupt Treasury Department in the nation's history, Bessent got irate, telling her that was a slanderous statement. He'll raise his voice at an accusation. He won't answer a yes or no question about the taxpayers he actually works for. Elizabeth Warren tried a different angle entirely, pressing Bessent on Trump's stock trading activity. Since recent financial disclosures show the president made nearly 4,000 trades between January and March alone. Bessent's response? He said Congress should lead by example on stock trading before focusing on Trump, and claimed Trump wasn't personally engaged in high-frequency trading because he has an outside manager doing it. Convenient, unverifiable, and exactly the kind of answer you give when you have no real answer. Here's the part that should make every American furious, regardless of party. This isn't about liking or disliking Trump. It's about whether the tax code applies equally to everyone or whether it has a carve-out for whoever happens to be sitting in the Oval Office at the time. 7 Democratic senators, including Elizabeth Warren, Michael Bennet, and independent Bernie Sanders, wrote directly to Bessent and IRS Chief Frank Bisignano, stating the settlement is not only unprecedented, but appears to violate the law and decades of policy prohibiting the White House from intervening in IRS audit decisions. Decades of policy gone in one settlement. Nobody outside the room got to see negotiated. And the man whose job it is to answer for it keeps hiding behind a courtroom door that he could open anytime he wanted to.